7 o'clock, call the meeting to order. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Soulsby? Here. Counselor Savage? Here. Counselor Fleck?
Here.
Counselor Stinnett?
Here.
Counselor Irvin?
Here.
Counselor Roberts?
Here.
Mayor Gowing?
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 3 is special presentations. First one is Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Whereas hundreds of dedicated telecommunicators daily serve the citizens of Oregon by answering their requests for law enforcement, fire, and emergency medical services by dispatching the appropriate assistance as quickly as possible. And whereas the professional public safety telecommunicator is that vital link between the citizens or victims and the public safety provider who may apprehend a criminal, save their possessions from fire, save their life or life of a loved one. And whereas the critical functions performed by professional telecommunicators also include those related to forestry and conservation operations, highway safety and maintenance activities, and many other operations performed by federal, state, and local government agencies. And whereas the Associated Public Safety Communications Officer, Inc., an organization of nearly 10,000 people from the United States and Canada, has set aside the second week of April to recognize telecommunicators and their critical role in the protection of property. Now, therefore, I, Jeffrey D. Gowing, Mayor of the City of Cottage Grove, Oregon, do hereby proclaim April 10th to 16th, 2022 to be Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Cottage Grove and encourage all citizens to join in this observance. In witness there whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Cottage Grove, Oregon to be affixed on this 28th day of March, 2022. The next one is Drowning Prevention Month Proclamation. Whereas Drowning Prevention Month was established through a collective effort across the country to promote water safety and drowning prevention, and whereas drowning is the second leading cause of childhood accidental death, and whereas 10 people drown each day in the United States, and whereas each year near drowning accidents result in lifelong disabilities, and whereas the Warren H. Doherty Aquatic Center in our community pool has partnered with South Lane Early Learning Center and promote water safety, drowning prevention, and provide swim lesson scholarships in the community. And whereas the month of May 2022 has been identified as Drowning Prevention Month by the National Drowning Prevention Alliance, and whereas with temperatures on the rise, more people are heading out to enjoy summer activities, many of which include water and swimming, and whereas by becoming informed, each of us can enjoy a fun, safe summer. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Jeffrey D. Gowing, Mayor of the City of Cottage Grove, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize the month of May 2022 as Drowning Prevention Month and call this observance to the attention of its citizens. In witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Cottage Grove to be affixed on this 28th day of March 2022. Okay, item 4, there's no items to be added to the agenda. Item 5 is appearances of interested citizens for items not on the agenda. This is a time for citizens to comment on items not listed on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. Individual speakers must be recognized by presiding officer, provide their name and address, and will be allowed up to 5 minutes or less with council approval. Comments regarding any matter scheduled for public hearing may be provided only in that hearing. Comments on agenda items may be taken prior to council's discussion on that item. Council will not engage in any discussion or make a decision based on public comment at this time. However, the council may take the comments under advisement for discussion and action at a further council meeting. Some of you didn't say whether you wanted not on the agenda or agenda items, so when I get to you, I'll ask you that. First one that's not on the agenda is Mr. Bruce Kelch.
Bruce Couch, 78340 Haldeman Road. I thought it'd be nice if every city council meeting opened with positive public comments from citizens. So I wanted to congratulate the city on being designated a tree city and for the grant that you got, tree giveaway that's coming up on Saturday, and the planting of, I think it's 25 cherry trees on the trailhead park area. Just to share something about cherry trees, when I was looking up the Yoshino cherry tree, which is what's in Washington, D.C., as well as Okabonos, the American Architect magazine in 2017 said there were 7 Japanese cherry festivals outside of Japan. And I kept thinking, what would happen if Cottage Grove was the 8th? Salem, which is one of the ones that was listed, has 151 cherry trees. And with the addition of what the city's planning in this week, we'll have 25. So if you do the math and everybody kicked in a cherry tree here and there, we could equal Salem and be one of the great cherry festivals. The biggest little cherry festival west of the Mississippi might be a good goal. So, thank you.
See Representative Cedric Hayden snuck in here. Good afternoon, or good evening, sir. Welcome. Michelle Thurston, you had not on the agenda and you want on the agenda as well, correct? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Michelle Thurston. I live at 925 West Main Street. I'm here tonight to talk about and support the proposed community health center, which will be the first rural center in Lane County. I had the honor of attending the last City Council meeting virtually and was frankly disappointed in the reaction by some with regards to the request for contribution and support of the clinic. I am choosing to believe the negative and misleading comments and questions were the result of the discussion on the homeless crisis our city is facing and the lack of knowledge and understanding of the project and services that will be offered to our community. I would like to first address the comments about behavioral services. The idea that people who choose to or need to seek behavioral services are referred to as those people. Let me explain that those people are your neighbors. They are the mother who just gave birth 2 weeks ago and is experiencing postpartum depression. It is that 57-year-old man who spent his entire adult life providing for his family with literal back-breaking work and can no longer work and is experiencing depression. It is that sophomore in high school who, after 2 long years of a pandemic, has been having issues focusing mentally and physically. What about that 6th grader whose family member is in their final stage of cancer treatment and is needing tools to help adjust to the knowledge that their family member will die? Now, let's talk about medical care. There are many people in our community that do not have access to preventative health care. Their only health care comes when they can no longer stand it and must seek treatment at the emergency department. Why? Because they are uninsured or underinsured and cannot afford basic medical treatment. Well, we have the Cottage Grove Community Health Clinic, don't we? Yes, we do. But if you cannot afford to see a doctor, you are left to wait and hope it's not serious. Next is the dental care. There are countless people in our community who cannot afford any kind of dental care, whether that be a simple cleaning or fillings. Dental care is a huge need for so many. This clinic can provide a lot of that care that is so desperately needed, so people do not have to wait for problems to get so bad that we need the ED for a temporary Band-Aid. Well, we have dentists in the area. They can just go there, right? No, actually they can't. And for those lucky few who do have coverage, oftentimes must wait month on month on month for basic care. This proposed clinic is something our community is in desperate need for. I have heard the argument that if that clinic is built, it will just bring in more of those people. Guess what? Those people are already here. They are your neighbors. And just like housing, healthcare should not be something only certain people should have access to. Healthcare should be for all. There is no downside to making sure your neighbor, the children, and the seniors of our community have the care they need to thrive. They should not have to decide, do I pay my rent, buy food, medication, or go to the doctor for that issue as it is getting worse as each day progresses. We as a community are better than that. We have the ability to do what we can to provide those services. Why do we question that? Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Johanna Z.
Hi, I'm Johanna Z. I'm at 1386 Cottonwood Place. I want to say thank you to everyone who is making comments. I think it's really important that we keep this discussion open. I do want to talk about the presentations, specifically addressing this proposed community health center, because I know you've got the homeless town hall on April 5th. I'll save my comments for then. So we've got several points of concern. I don't think anyone doubts that we need more services for people in this community. The question is, what type of services are we looking for, and what is effective, and what has worked? So I spent some time digging into all the organizations that are involved in this proposed clinic, and I just got really quite concerned. And I wanted to see what is the common thread with all of these in every single one. And all of them have this ideology that is promoting equity, diversity, and inclusion, along with, when I went through every single one, they're talking about systemic racism, they're talking about gender transition, they're talking about gender neutral bathrooms. I could go on and on every single one, and I'm like, what is going on with this, And I look to see that every single one of these agencies has grant funding, and along with grant funding, just like the ESSER funding, what the school district got $10 million for ESSER funds, there comes a criteria. So when you take money from another organization, there's usually, you're beholden to their criteria. So we look at South Lane School District, who teaches CRT, equity training, social emotional learning, which is now relabeled as mental health. But it's still the same. It's still CRT, and there's a lot of questions about the ethics regarding those teachings. I look at South Lane Mental Health, and I discover that the superintendent, actually we talked about this at another time, superintendent of the schools is in fact on the board of South Lane Mental Health. And you keep looking and you see that everybody's on each other's boards, or they've got a spouse on the boards. We've got this intricate web of conflict of interest that has been prevalent in this community, and it just got deeper and darker the more I looked. And it's frankly pretty scary. And again, I want to reiterate that, we're compassionate people. We want services. We want to take care of people. But just because you have services doesn't mean the people out there who need them are actually going to take them. I happen to know 3 homeless people in this community that were offered housing. And I know I'm going off topic here. They were offered housing, and they did not take it. They did not want it. So just because you put it in front of them doesn't mean that they're going to use those services. So Peace Health, there's radical agenda on all of these, very strict guidelines. Peace Health fired many members of this community. So how much do they really care about those members? They're still requiring the masks and the jabs. Community health centers of Lane County, they're pushing the vaccine on everyone and testing. You can't volunteer at the school unless you go through their rigid protocols. If you want to go in and watch, we really need cameras in all those classrooms to find out what is going on in there, so we can hold everybody accountable. And that's really what this is holding people accountable. and not just giving handouts to people, because that is not being in service to people. That does not help people. It has been shown time and time again. And I actually appreciated everyone's comments you made last time. Counselor Savage, you are absolutely right. We need vocational training. But it's very misleading when you read this and you think that students are going to be able to go to this healthcare center and learn a skill and go out and make good money from this. They're not. They're still going to need higher education. We need real skills being taught. We need welding and construction and floor installation, electrician, plumbing, all those real life skills that they actually can go out and make money right away from. That would be an amazing investment in our community. I heard on the Beeper Show, Yvonne Curtis the other day, this is part of the same agenda, which I'm just so disgusted at, is that she alluded to the fact that the schools are safe and home is not. It's more separation of the family, and that's one of the biggest concerns of having this clinic right next to the high school, is that students can just go over there and get care without involving the parents. And she made 2 comments on Friday on the Beeper Show that suggested that enrollment was down 330 students and that home is not safe. So I would like everyone to just take a moment and look at the guy in blue in the back of this room. Everybody knows who I'm talking about. There's a guy in blue sitting in the back, right? So CRT, equity, systemic racism. We are teaching our youth to hate this guy because he's white, because he's male, because I don't know if he's a father or not, but if he is, because he's a father, he's a parent, and not trust parents, and because he's a police officer.
You need to wrap up. You've hit your 5 minutes.
He's a valuable member of the community. Thank you. And I just want you to remember that if you support this clinic, you're supporting the community, the youth, in hating this guy back here, because every single one of those organizations have very clearly on all their websites this ideology, and that's a very sick ideology. And I just want to throw out there again, Martin Luther King Jr., I look to a day when people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Thank you very much.
Kayla Harris.
Hi, my name is Kyla Harris. I live at 81086 Sears Road. I'm here to talk about the community center. I'm not exactly sure where I stand on it, especially after hearing everything said today. However, what I am sure about is that the vaccine really isn't safe, and promoting that to everyone, especially without giving them, explicitly the risks, even if they are, rare. I tried to write down in my speech what I wanted to say, but I couldn't figure it out. So I figured best thing would just be to speak from the heart, to share my experience. So I grew up here my whole life. I went to Bohemia Elementary School. I went to Creswell Middle School, Creswell High School, Cottage Grove High School. I eventually got my GED during the pandemic and enrolled at Lane. However, to attend Lane Community College, you had to get the vaccine. And so after almost 2 years of online school, there was no way I was going to go to online school and pay for it. So I got the vaccine on August 14th. A few days later, I started hemorrhaging. I went to the ER, time away from work, time away from my family, scared. They sent me home. No solution, just a quick Band-Aid, a couple bags of fluid, called it good. I went back in. That was at Harrison Elementary School, by the way. They gave me a $50 gift card for getting it too. A month later, I went to get my second shot. I told them, I said, hey, so when I got the first one, this is what happened. When they're not exactly sure, why? And I told her, and she said, well, were you on your period when I got it? I said, yes, I was. And I said, oh, well, if you got it on your period, then it can cause you to hemorrhage. It's been noted. I said, okay. I wasn't on my period then, so I went ahead and got the second shot. A few days later, hemorrhage again in the ER, ambulance, was then later hospitalized and been through hell. So to write down the list of things that I went through, I've been in the ER 7 times between August and January, hospitalized overnight for 5 to 9 day stays, 3 different times. I've received over 35 blood transfusions, and including a massive transfusion protocol and surgery. I was diagnosed with acute on chronic anemia from blood loss. My hemoglobin dropped down to a 3.7, where I can guarantee you most people in this room, especially men, are between a 12 and a 16. That's the healthy range. Anything below 7 is critical, and you will be receiving blood for below that. I was told that if I wasn't a young 17-year-old, being at a 3.7 hemoglobin, I would have been dead. My organs wouldn't have been failing, and I wouldn't have been able to be saved. I've had 3 DNCs, which are dilations and curettage, where they scoop out the inside of your uterus, with a whole long list of side effects that could happen. I've had 2 uterine artery embolizations, 7+ rounds of heavy hormone therapy, 3 intrauterine Foley catheters, a hysteroscopy, a cystectomy of a 7.7 centimeter cyst on one of my ovaries that wasn't there before, CAT scans, and 5 transvaginal ultrasounds, which any woman who's had one can tell you they're not comfortable. Over 35 different IVs, including the ultrasound IVs that are like 3 inches long, especially when your veins are flat and have no blood in it. It's fun for them to dig around and try and find a hole. Plasma transfusions. I've passed blood clots the size of baseballs. At one point, I was 4 centimeters dilated just from passing blood clots. It's caused PTSD for me and my family, watching me be near death many times over and over again. My 2-year-old sister found me passed out in the bathroom in a pile of blood. 2-year-old baby sister in the middle of the night. Since leaving the hospital, I couldn't sleep. I was hospitalized at OHSU. Every morning, I'd see a team of 8 doctors. They were new doctors too, all the time. Best in the state. No one knew how to fix me. They told me straight to my face every day, I don't know what's wrong with you, and I don't know how to fix it.
You hit your 5 minutes. You need to wrap up.
I'm wrapping it up. Thank you. I don't even know if I'm fertile anymore. They've put me on such a heavy hormone dose and hoping that that keeps me alive and away from this issue for now, but we don't know what's going to happen. And this isn't just me. I've known 3 other young ladies who've had this happen to them. The doctor in OHSU has said this happens to 1 in 3 women, but not this severe. There are cases this severe, but 1 in 3 women who get the vaccine have this reaction. And I just wish I would have known the risks. And telling kids that it's safe, young girls, our whole next generation is getting this vaccine without knowing that it could cost them the fertility. I was this close to getting a hysterectomy many times. I asked the doctors, the best in the state, the head of and the chief of their whole their whole team. They said on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being we know how to fix you, and 5 being you're gonna get hysterectomy, and we don't even know if that's gonna fix it. They said you're at a 4.5. I was that close, and I was perfectly healthy
all
before.
crazy fine right after the other.
I just want this to be something that people are aware of. I just want, if this clinic is promoting the vaccine, I just want them to know the risks.
You need to finish.
I'm done.
Thank you.
Just want them to know the risks.
So just as a point of order, we should not be classing either side of issues.
Linda Olson, you can leave now.
Yeah, I'm free to go.
My name is Linda Olson. I live on Girard Avenue in Pleasant Grove. My heart's breaking because I know what she's talking about. That's not what I was going to talk on tonight. But it's the not knowing, and it's not being provided the information when these people make their decisions to accept the vaccine. That's the most terrifying for me. Actually, I came to talk about meeting the homeless in the parks people along the river, not being able to take my grandchildren there. But this has changed my confidence. I'm a grandmother whose granddaughter lost her baby here in trimester because of a vaccine. I'm the wife of a man who can't be treated at VA because he can't take the vaccine. I'm the sister of a brother who is stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Can't take the vaccine, and they were refused treatment in the hospitals. It's heartbreaking when I see a young lady like this, and she's just starting out, and that's not what I came to talk about. It breaks my heart. What I came to talk about was an article in the paper. Cindy Wheeldryer and her husband had donated a shower facility for the community center, or communities sharing center, and they had no manpower to operate it more than 4 hours on Wednesdays. So I called over and talked to Teresa. She said, we have plenty of volunteers to work in the food pantry and the clothing intake and all of that, but there's no volunteers to work in the shower facility because it has to be cleaned between each, and they have to provide the amenities that go with the shower, the soap, the towels, the clean socks, the clean underwear, and all of that. If we're so focused on taking care of the homeless, why can't we use some of the funding to pay custodial staff to help them with that shower facility and keep it open? The homeless deserve respect and treatment with the amenities that are necessary for sanitation and health. But you're more focused on putting in $100,000 to the South Lane Community Center where they are going to mandate vaccinations. This has changed my whole context. There's got to be answers online. I go on the media and people are complaining about the parking out at the way station. I don't take my grandkids out to the turtle ponds because there's too much human feces out there. It's one of the things in the article in the paper on the 17th that says that you're eliminating chapter items under 12.24.02 to allow the homeless to live in our parks and in the parking lots, and they can stay on site for 72 hours. But nobody's talking about if you're going to allow them to live there, are you going to provide toilets for them? As a taxpayer, I want to know that I'm not paying hazardous waste to come after the fact and clean it up. So why don't you invest in the basic amenities of human respect if you're going to put it out where they're allowed to camp there, provide the service. You're making us pay for it, either before or after. Let us pay for it. You are designated $100,000 for the South Lane Mental Health Center at LCC. I also agree that it's the wrong placement. Yes, it's a necessary service, but I think it's the wrong place right next to the high school. You're talking about homeless housing out on 99 close to the high school. Yeah, we need it. People with low income come here because they can afford to live here. There's no real jobs, but they can afford to live here. I retired here because I love the small community. From Springfield. I worked with the homeless there. I worked with volunteers there. I work with volunteers here. I still volunteer. But it's a respect and dignity issue. People may get upset on the mainstream media and talk about it, but actually, as long as we're talking, there's solutions out there. You're just not hearing them. And I think some of the shortcuts that are being taken without looking at the long haul, it's a sad venture you're on. It really is. As a taxpayer, I want to put my money up front. I help put in the bridge, help with some of the garage sales. But I think that maybe I need to run for budget committee or something and take a look at that. I've got some experience in it. It's our community. We need to take it back. We need to take it back. So thank you. Thank you for the time that you have spent here. It's not over. People are talking and they're standing up and they're saying enough is enough. You work for us. You work for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Jan Oaksbury.
Jan Oxbury, 1350 Merrill Lane. You do work for us, and I appreciate that very much. I think there are a lot of accusations that thrown around in this community, and I think that's shameful. If people can't back up what they're saying, I think they ought to shut it, personally. And I would like to just
You need to address us.
speak in support of the health clinic. From what I've heard, I didn't know anything about this, so I need to learn about it, but it sounds great. And I'm sorry that some people think inclusion and equity are a bad thing. I think they're great. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Gilroy? 10A? Okay. Heather Murphy, are you at 10A or you want to speak now? Oh, you can talk now then.
Heather Murphy, 1042 Chestnut. Hi, Mayor Gowing and everyone. It's nice to see you. I just want to thank Josh for putting forward the proclamation and just add a dimension. This is a partnership. It's unique. Even though we share a parking lot, we've been very creative in how we serve some of our most marginalized population, specifically speaking about some of our Spanish-speaking families and our Guatemalan families that have moved to this community, are working hard, and don't come from an area where swim lessons or access or even a public pool are an opportunity that they've ever seen before. So our partnership has set up scholarships for swimming lessons. We started with just a handful, I think, and it has now grown to nearly 30 in each session. And these are children that are learning basic life safety, and then some of them are choosing to go on and learn their strokes, and then go on hopefully to become lifeguards, like two of our lovely young people here tonight. This is the way that you build community, especially around a population who have never seen a system like this or had any experience like this. And it's an inclusion of some people that have never even had an opportunity. We did take a tour with families, and the looks on the faces, not only of the children, but of their parents, for opportunities that are available to them in our beautiful community just makes me very happy. For all of our community partners here today, I'm here representing the school district, who works very closely with these families. Our center is a point of entry for them as they're bridging into our schools, becoming our neighbors, and certainly working side by side with other community members. So I just want to thank you for the proclamation, and thank our community members for the partnership, because these families are important to us and are so very proud to be able to put their children into something that for many of us is a rite of passage. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Duncan Newberry.
Duncan Newberry, 80453 Sears Road. I'm here to talk about the Community Mental Health Center. And I recently received the talking points memo from a group called wethepeople.org. And as one of the people, I disagree with a lot of these statements, some of which you've already heard. My comments are at length. I would appreciate to be able to give them to you in writing rather than bore you for 20 odd minutes, but I have a few things I wanted to hit on. When I talk about where I'd like to see the community go, I'm from a place of faith. I know this is all faiths are welcome here in this country, but in my faith, I lean heavily on when the Bible says, love thy neighbor as thyself, that neighbor might look like me, he may not. They may be rich, poor, they may have mental health issues, they may be homeless, they may be of a different color than I am. And the Bible addresses us to love all those people equally. So when we say inclusion, I mean inclusion as love thy neighbor. And also, when Jesus says, as you do the least of my brothers, you do unto me, that means how we treat the homeless and how we treat people suffering from mental health problems, addiction, often in tandem. These are sort of a group of things that tend to move together. The most common group of homeless people are veterans. So people who have served our country are now unable to find a place in it. The most common reason for youth to be homeless is to be turned out because they come out as gay, transgender. And we need to love those people too, even if we are not. We don't understand them. or we don't look like them. And lastly, when the Bible says you shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the soul of a stranger, as you were strangers in Egypt. We're Americans. We've all probably been thrown out of somewhere at some point. My family was thrown out of Scotland 200 years ago, and we came here with nothing. And a couple hundred years later, I feel like I'm doing pretty good. I'm very happy with that. And I want to offer that to our mine and Guatemalan community members who are coming here fleeing civil war. And also, from my time in Afghanistan, I have several coworkers from there who are now living in the United States because they're afraid to go live in their own country after working with their American partners for 20 years. All this is change, and change is fearful, deep, dark, and scary. And when I read the Way We the People document, I saw a lot of fear. The answer to this hardship is not denial that we have a problem about homelessness or drug addiction, or that we have people from different countries coming here who may not understand that they can go to the pool, but to take these community issues on and address them, to offer services to these people as we would want our services offered to us if we were in that position. We should help them with these challenges. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to skip through most of this. We are blessed in this to live in a land of plenty, and that there are people who are homeless and hungry is not an indictment of their character for being in need, but of ours for failing to help them. I urge City Council to move forward with these services and to move beyond fear and judgment. And I'm going to close it there. I will deliver my written statement afterwards. That's all right with you.
Give the city recorder.
I will do so. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, it takes us to item 6. There's no public hearing, so we'll move to item 7, consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
You didn't sign up. It's not on there now. It's we've changed that since then. You have to sign up prior to the meeting. No, I have a motion on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 8, resolution and ordinances. Item A is a resolution authorizing support for the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department local government grant application for Bohemia Park North Entry Plaza splash pad. Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. The Oregon State Parks and Recreation Department is accepting applications for the local government grant program. The local government grant program funds park and recreation acquisitions, improvements, and enhancements. In October of 2021, the city supported an application to the Economic and Development Administration for grant opportunity to fund capital improvements at Bohemia Park. These improvements focused upon the entry triangle to the park at the intersection of 10th and Main, and include a hardscaped interpretive area with an entrance courtyard, a full-scale replica water tower with an interactive water feature, 6 stone pillars reflecting the 5 fundamental topics of Bohemia Park, 5 fundamental topics, and the area's Native American history, and an art walkthrough a local sculpture garden. The local government grant program request will be for $450,000 to fund the water tower and the interpretive water feature. If approved, the tower and water feature can be built as a standalone improvement to Bohemia Park, regardless of the outcome of the Economic Development Administration grant. If the Economic Development Grant Administration grant is fully funded, the local government grant program grant will be considered additional match to the EDA grant. The city match of the engineering and planning staff support, utility fees, and permit fees is estimated to be at $50,000. The Bohemia Foundation currently has contribution commitments in excess of $300,000 which fully covers the local government grant program 40% match requirement. It is necessary at this time that the City Council adopt a resolution to authorize support for the submittal of the grant application to the Oregon Parks and Recreation Local Government Grant Program for the Bohemia Park by April 1st. That's the deadline for submittal 2022. Are there any questions?
Resolution number?
2066.
Councilor Fleck.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council adopt resolution 2066.
Second.
Have a motion with a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Soulsby? Aye. Counselor Savage?
Aye.
Counselor Fleck?
Aye.
Counselor Stinnett?
Aye.
Counselor Urban?
Aye.
Counselor Roberts?
Aye.
Mayor Gowing?
Aye. Resolution 2066 passes. Brings us to item B, resolution establish appropriation within the general fund, community development department for expenditure of unforeseen specific purpose grant from the Arbor Day Foundation. Ms. Likens.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. The city has received a grant in the amount of $6,700 from the Arbor Day Foundation. The Arbor Day Foundation grant was made possible by a generous donation from the Serendipity Foundations. Let's be working together. The grant is used specifically to provide funding for city trees, planting, and distribution project, allowing for the purchase of 900 trees to give to the residents of Cottage Grove, and another 100 larger stature trees to be purchased and planted on public property. The revenue will be recognized in the state and local grants line item in the general fund, and the expenditure will be placed in the Community Development Department Urban Forestry Earth Day line item, as it will be spent within the current fiscal year. In order to spend this money lawfully, the city must comply with the requirements of local budget law. It's staff's recommendation that the City Council adopt the resolution to establish appropriations for use of grant funds for the purpose stated in the amount of $6,700. Any questions?
Councilor Urban.
I move that the City Council adopt a resolution to establish appropriations for the use of the grant funds.
2067.
Yeah, is resolution 2067.
Second. Have a motion with a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Soulsby? Aye. Counselor Savage? Aye. Counselor Fleck?
Aye.
Counselor Stinnett?
Aye.
Counselor Urban?
Aye.
Counselor Roberts?
Aye.
Mayor Gowing?
Aye. Resolution 2067 passes.
Thank you.
Brings us to business from the City Council. Item A is Warren H. Doherty Aquatic Center report. Mr. Myers.
Good evening. Tonight we have Josh Norton, the new pool manager with the Aquatic Center, here with us to give us our annual Aquatic Center report, which we haven't had for a couple of years as a result of the pandemic. So we're excited to have him here and get to meet him because many of us haven't met yet. It's the new pool manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me tonight. I'm excited to be here and talk about fun things in our community. So we've got a slideshow up on the screens that we'll go ahead and walk through. The bottom is a mission statement that I found in some records from the 90s. And the mission of the Warren H. Doherty Aquatic Center was to provide a diverse set of excellent aquatic programs in a safe, clean, and fun environment. And I love that, and I wanted to bring it back. So that is our mission statement yet again. And it's funny that Heather mentioned building community, because that's what I see as my job. You guys built this brand new, beautiful facility, and then threw me the keys to see what we could do with it. And that's what we're trying to do. So we'll move on to the next slide. In diversity, we're focused on a couple different key areas: education, recreation, fitness, therapy, and competition. So those are what I'm keeping in mind every day when I coordinate and plan and build community. All right, let's start with our school groups. So throughout the year, we have 3 groups that come in every day. So we serve kindergarten, 1st, 3rd, and 5th grades. 2nd and 4th are high on our list, but they come in and they get 8 lessons as a part of their curriculum. That's incredible. So even if they don't learn within those 8 lessons, they can get the general water safety, the how-tos, and then we can bring them into our swimming lesson programs and other water safety activities. Middle school madness is something that has gone on every year at the pool, where the middle school comes in and all middle schoolers get these lessons. And what I realized is the staff used to call it middle school madness because it was hectic. So we branded that. And this year we organized and coordinated it. And we had a total of 113 sixth graders come through, 31 hours of pool time over 8 days, where they worked with Coach Tyson and they got swim lesson and water safety training. Then we moved on to the 7th and 8th graders. So as you can see, 191 middle schoolers, 42.5 hours of pool time, and that's free to all of them. And then we're raising money so that we can hand out scholarships to those that really need it, that need to continue. That's something that our community should be proud of. And it's actually this program that enticed me to apply for this job and move to this area. Next one. All right, so let's talk about our swimming lessons. So with COVID, everything has been a mess, and we've had to really cap our capacities, and we brought in a new swim lesson program when I started in August of 2020. So we have a 5-person maximum per instructor in our classes, and our sessions are 2 weeks long, 8 individual lessons. You can see winter session 1 through 3, we slowly started growing. Now spring session, we have 89 kids signed up right now. The reason that my voice is a little froggy and my hair is a little frizzy is because I just got out of the water tonight because I'm one of the instructors. We have 89 kids in our community that are taking swimming lessons, and we do water babies class on Saturdays. Now we're bringing it in on Tuesday with an average of 10 babies in every class with their parent that are learning the basics 6 months to 3 years until we can get them into our normal program. And then another little additive that I'm very proud of is private and semi-private swimming lessons. 210 private appointments, 30 minutes, one-on-one since July of last year. And our semi-private lessons are usually 2 to 3 kids per instructor. We've done 73 of those. And I brought 2 of my staff here tonight. These kids are 15 through 18 years old, and they're running these programs. They're doing all of it. They're really incredible. All right, move on to the next slide. So recreation. We have open recreation time to families and kids Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday right now. We've had a cap at 50 throughout COVID because of social distancing and then because of staffing as well. But with that cap, you can see just this month so far, which is not over, we've had 353 student drop-ins, and then a family, which is 2 adults, 4 kids, we've had 65 of them. To do a little experiment, last Friday night, I stayed and brought on another lifeguard, and we decided not to cap it. Let's just see how many community members try to come swimming this Friday night for 2 hours, and we had 90 people. So my goal for this summer is to max out at 125 every rec swim, and I know that we can accomplish that. Move on to the next one. We do pool parties every weekend. So you can see that on average, they're about an hour and a half long. We have 4 rentals a weekend right now. That's something else that I plan to expand. Our rentals are $90 an hour. So given the area, they're cost effective. People do their birthday parties, they do cake on the deck. We have a patio that's going to be wonderful this summer for them to do their presents and things like that. And then we've got about 10 extra hours a week that I'm really hoping to fill. My goal this summer will be 10 hours a week of birthday parties and pool rentals on the weekends. All right, this is the, my slide went into Google Docs, so it's a little messed up. Sorry about that. That's my fault. But let's talk water, fitness, and exercise. So we had 2 water aerobics classes that used to be at the community center here that we brought on. We now have 13 different classes a week, and they're full all the time. We continue to add more. So you can see the averages. Well, you can kind of see the averages up here. Aqua has an average of about 14 participants each class, and it's offered 6 days a week. Our Aqua workout, I think, has an average of 5 participants. Our Chi class, which is now 2 days a week, 7 participants for every class. The Mermaid group, which was one that was at the community center, they've got an average of 9 participants. And then Boot Camp, which is one that I started in the cold pool, it's got an average of 7 participants a week, and we offer it twice a week. We have 134 active passes, which means they paid for a 30-day pass for adults and seniors. And something that I didn't throw up here, but we bill insurance now as well. So we have 3 different insurance programs, and we have 167 seniors in the community who are getting free memberships, and at the end of the month, we bill their insurance company. I think that's something to really be proud of as well. And then the adult drop-in, these are people that did not join a class. They just wanted to either come in and swim laps or use the therapy pool. For March so far, we've had 76 adults come in and 65 seniors that do not have memberships. They just drop in to try it out. And then this is our athletics. So we decided to be ambitious. We will always decide to be ambitious. And this year, we hosted districts for everyone. We are 4A here in Cottage Grove. So we were obviously going to do the 4A, 3A, 2A, and 1A district champions, which was the 11th and 12th of February. You can see all the different high schools that traveled here. We had approximately 350 athletes. But because we're ambitious, on those same days, we split the day in half, and we also we bid out and won for 5A districts. So all of those high schools and an additional 350 athletes came in. We started at 6 a.m. and we hosted one district, and then we did an hour turnover while they went to their hotels, and we offered the next district. And the next day, we did the exact same thing. And the weekend before, we hosted the 6A districts, and you can see all of those schools. So we had high schools from all over the state of Oregon coming in and visiting our pool, and now they all know where we are and they know what we do. We started a new thing last June, and that is community partners. So we're actively reaching out into the community to try to create relationships with other areas. So these are just a few of the community partners that we have going on right now. The Early Learning Center. As Heather spoke about, they have about 30 kids registered every session. There's actually 41 total that they've registered, and then every session they're just putting more and more. So they've put almost $3,500 into the pool in the last couple of months, paying for children's swimming lessons, which is an absolute incredible thing. And then moving on to scuba. Last June, because of COVID, we decided to branch out and try to build some new revenue streams. So the Eugene Skin Divers up in Eugene had Sheldon as their place of classes, and Sheldon went under construction. So we called and offered them a really good deal. And now scuba comes to our facility every Tuesday and Thursday night to do classes. They charge their participants about $400 a class. We rent the pool to them, and then they pay for a rental every month. So far, they have certified over 200 individuals from all over Lane and Douglas County, and those individuals have to attend our facility at least 4 times to get certified. So we're bringing in all of these different participants through scuba, as well as 13 staff members every time they're here, and any other extra things that they do. I just booked the Columbia Drag Boat Association is now coming in to do rescue diving practice at our facility in April. I just booked that this morning with them. And that started from the scuba partnership that we have. They recommended our facility. I'm really proud of the scuba. And then the Cottage Grove Physical Therapy is a membership that has now ended because Cottage Grove Physical Therapy is no longer. The therapist moved, but we set up a partnership with them where they could bring their clients and do their appointments in our therapy pool, which is 92 degrees. So she was bringing in 20 clients from June to October, and then we were billing them thereafter. And we set up an additional membership afterward so that in their recovery time, they could come in for a discounted rate and continue to work on their rehabilitation. All right, and then the Cottage Grove Aqua Lions, that's been around for a long time. They're one of our major partners. They practice 13 and a half hours a week. And in the last year, they've hosted 5 home swim meets, and being on their executive board, that's something I'm involved in as well. And that brings in people from all over the state as well, which is really exciting. Our newest partnership is with Tamarack, which is the pool in South Eugene. It was a therapy pool and it closed down. So I've been meeting with the board, which is still active, about every 3 weeks to bring in some of their programs. They have an email list of about 2,000. So they're talking about our pool and our therapy pool now. We're the only therapy pool in Lane County that's above 90 degrees. So we're trying to capitalize on that. And we brought in an I Chi class twice a week, which was in my group exercise slide. And then our newest program is Watsu, which is in-water massage therapy. And we have 4 practitioners now. We've set up the system to where they can start bringing in their clients, and then we bill them, which is it's a really cool thing. And then because we're always growing and fundraising, this is our corporate sponsorship area. So we built this plan, and we're going to start working on meeting businesses and getting involved in the community to set up these different corporate sponsorships where we can advertise businesses, and the funding through this is going to go in to help supplement the programs that don't make as much and different things like that. With this corporate sponsorship, we're also starting a community outreach program. And I brought 2 of my lifeguards here, James and Cassidy. Cassidy is heading our community outreach program, and it is not a sponsorship program. It's just an initiative for us to meet local organizations and see how we can work together to be mutually beneficial. And then my last slide is just building community. So on Friday, we hired 7 new lifeguards, which means right now we have 23 certified lifeguards, which is massive because 19 of those are all under 18. They're teenagers, and they are running the show. They're doing such a wonderful job. James and Cassidy came here tonight because they wanted to see this part of this side of things. But I think Cottage Grove should be very aware of their young people and the work that they're doing and the community that they're building. And we hope that the city will continue to be a major partner as we build community at the pool. And I would love to answer any questions and end my presentation with that.
Councilor Irvin.
Well,
Clapping.
Thank you.
Mr. Norton, this is amazing.
Thank you.
You're amazing.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I appreciate that you are in this role and utilizing this new pool and bringing your reputation of Cottage Grove to surrounding communities the way you are. So thank you. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm just thrilled.
Thank you.
Thrilled. So needed.
Councilor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Joshua, your enthusiasm is absolutely wonderful. I have sat in this chair for 6 years. That's by far the best pool report we've ever had, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
It was full of information we can use about how to deal with it in the future as council for me. And like I say, your enthusiasm and the one word that you used 3 or 4 times, community. I applaud your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Councilor Stanton.
You said something that I found very powerful. You said we'll always decide to be ambitious, and I think the energy behind that speaks for itself and comes out in everything you said and are trying to do. I was passionately in support of renovating the pool, and I think just the energy that's brought into this new facility is clearly paying dividends. I've always appreciated the empowerment of our young people at the pool, not just swimming skills but life skills. And I wondered if you said what time the rec swim was. I didn't hear it.
I actually brought you a schedule.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you.
I brought you all a schedule. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6:30 to 8:30. Saturday mornings, 10:30 to noon.
Yeah, I think my daughter's still there. So.
Oh, she might be there right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Fleck.
So a great presentation, but one thing that I think is worth noting is the impact on the community of all those people coming to town and the money they spend in the motels and the restaurants and so as wonderful as your program is, and it's incredible. My son absolutely loved the pool and swim all the time, and this is so much more than we had back then. But that impact to the community and the economic driver of it is just impressive as well.
Which is on our forefront all the time. As we build these relationships, we want to bring people in.
Councilor Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Boy, are we lucky to have this pool, and wow, we are really lucky to have you in this position. This is incredible. I am going to echo what's already been said. What a delivery. I was sold to begin with, and I cannot wait to go. I'm really excited. Thank you so much for sharing your passion. You're clearly passionate. And what Councilor Flex said, the driving into the community, this is an incredible asset that we have. I remember 30 years ago growing up in high school and hearing that other
swim meets were happening here in Cottage Grove. This is the town known for the swim team, and it rings true today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Soulsby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The anticipation to get this pool built, and we were all waiting for it. And we're so excited, and I'm so grateful that you guys are doing such a good job with it. And I love hearing that you have so many young teens involved, because they will only get better and better, and you'll get to keep them for a few years the
Yes.
younger you get them. So good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was a really great presentation. And yeah, I think it was the best we've had. So I know it's been the best one the last 2 years for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time coming tonight. Item B is Chamber of Commerce report. Mr. Myers.
So now we have the Chamber of Commerce's executive director and to follow up after that. And so if she can do as well as the pool report.
Thanks a lot.
Just some things that I wanted to bring out. The transient room tax is one of our funding mechanisms for parks and for the Chamber of Commerce. We have a 4% transient room tax in the community. 1 percentage point of that, 1% of the 4%, or a quarter of the total, goes to the Chamber of Commerce and supports the visitors and information center and brochures and many of the things that they do in the community and businesses. COVID has not been nice to our transient room tax. In 2019-20 fiscal year, the transient room tax dropped $20,000 from what it was in 2018-19. 2018-19 was the biggest year we've ever had in the transient room tax, with a total of $132,000 collected. Usually we get around 90 to 100,000, but it's a good year. We had 132,000 collected in 19. Then in 20 and 21 fiscal year, it dropped an additional $16,000 on top of that 20. And so we were down a good $36,000 in our transient room tax in those 2 years. The good news is, even with the Village Green gone right now, we have rebounded significantly in the transient room tax. Right now, we are $3,879 ahead of what the transient room tax total was for the 2019-20 year. And comparing it to 2018, we're $22,000 ahead of our biggest year in 2018. So we anticipate that by the end of this fiscal year, July 1, that we will be as much or more than 2018. Some of that, like you just heard from the pool report, are things that are happening in the community and bringing people in. In addition to that, some of the work the chamber's done. And so we're working on trying to continue to increase that. One of the things that's happening to the transient room tax is the state of Oregon created the transient room tax a number of years ago, 1% tax to fund Travel Oregon and things on a statewide basis. And in doing that, they started collecting the transient room tax before they were. We were using the city of Eugene to collect ours, and in fact, the city of Eugene collected everybody's in Lane County and then distributed it back out. Eugene has decided to go to the Department of Revenue and have them collect it for them, so they won't collect it anymore. And they gave everybody in the county notice that, hey, we're not going to collect it anymore. You need to either start collecting it yourself or go to the Department of Revenue. We've talked about this, I believe, we'll be talking about this in the future council meeting. We've been working with the Department of Revenue, getting the paperwork all together so we can make that switch. We have to switch July 1. We don't think it's going to be a significant impact. It looks like the collection amount is, the fees for collecting are going to be similar or about the same, so we don't see a big downside. We just can't collect it. I mean, doing the paperwork and materials and trying to do that, and having the Department of Revenue collect it for us as they do for the state, and now all of Lane County is going to be going to it as well. None of the other communities in Lane County have decided to collect it themselves. We're all moving towards the Department of Revenue. So that's the one change that's happening, and we don't anticipate that that's going to have any significant change or decrease in revenues. Our hopes are with the Village Green project, and their hope that they continue to move forward with getting the hotel back up and in new shape as well, which will continue to help grow Transient Room Tax. But there's lots of things going on this coming year, and Sean is here to kind of share some of that information and what's going on with the Chamber of Commerce. Let me get your presentation back.
Basically, I'm here to just give my year in review for 2021, letting you know how much we've done during the years. And thank you for having me, Mr. Mayor and City Council. You can go to that. So membership, we ended last year with 230 members. We were up 34 new members and only 13 dropped. In 2021, we introduced the ability for our members to sponsor local businesses. We realized that there was several businesses that were struggling through the pandemic. And so some of our local businesses stepped up and paid for membership of 5 of our businesses. Restrictions allowed us to do 8 business after hours. All of them were very well attended. I think anything that had to do with the community last year was very well attended because everybody was so hungry to get back together. So when it was safe enough for everybody to meet, we tended to have pretty good turnout. Through our membership, they are allowed website support. And I just wanted to give you some numbers of the support that we give them through the website. Last year, we had a total number of page hits of 17,131. And then we had 45,592 search hits. And a search hit is when someone Googles something like a member and the members directory page pops up on the list. So if they'll Google, say, veterinarian clinics, then their page from our website pops up within the first top 10 or something like that. The link outs that we got, which is when they have had a page hit and they push on the link to see their website, we had 1,120. Then with the city, with help from the city and the Woodward Foundation, we were able to bring Oregon Rain to Cottage Grove. And Oregon Rain helps entrepreneurs with funding sources, mentorship, education, networking, and resources. You can turn it over. So volunteers at our visitor center. We have 3 standard volunteers that have stayed with us through the whole thing, and that is Tara Sue Bugart, Penny Westling, and Ann Crush. Last year, we were able to have 2 high school interns, River Moligno, I think that's how you say his last name. Is that how you say it, Chalice? Yeah, okay, good. And Ria Flores. And both have, Ria's moved on and she's in college right now, and River has moved on and is working with the Blackstone Inc. on several different things. We increased our hours at the volunteer center for 7 days during the week. And we were also able to, for the first time, to participate in Art Walk. This allowed for more foot traffic, sales for the visitor center, and our featured artists. The first 2 art walks that we had, each artist sold over $600 worth of art, which was fabulous. And they just keep getting better. By us being open 7 days a week, it allowed us to have a snapshot of when people were visiting. Go to the next one. So this is a snapshot from April through July. And these are, each day of the week. And so we can see with this information that our busiest days were Wednesday and Thursday, which really surprised me because I thought for sure being open on the weekends that they were going to be, it was going to be the weekends. And then I wasn't really sure whether the weekends, because other businesses were open, if they were just going to the other businesses or if they already knew what they were doing. But Wednesday and Thursday seems like it was the peak days that we had. This information, with the information that we gathered, we were also able to provide Travel Lane County
with information like where the people are traveling from and what times of year they traveled the most. We were able to find what their interests were when they visited and how long their stays were. So with our logbooks, we were able to like pinpoint which of the main tourist spots were. In 2021, with the uncertainty, we decided we needed to find ways to focus on bringing people to Cottage Grove. Our partnerships allowed us ways to get those inside and outside of our community excited about what we have right here in our own backyard and prove to them that we are a destination. Next slide. So I'm kind of calling this 2021 as the year of positive publicity. The Oregonian wrote an article featuring all of our covered bridges. The Eugene magazine featured the beautiful community portraits by Therese Nguyen. And they talked up artwork at Art Walk, and there was also a chamber ad there. So this was a place that we were targeting, Eugene, to get people to come down and just come down for the day or a quick overnight in Cottage Grove. And it seems to have worked. The Eugene Cascades and Coast, there was a full-page ad that the city sponsored and gave a great deal of information on how to spend a weekend in Cottage Grove. We provided the info, and Eugene Cascades and Coast provided the graphic design. Travel Awaits did an article on, one of the best small towns or hidden small towns that you need to visit. Travel Lane County held their first wine pairing event in Cottage Grove at the Chamber Covered Bridge. And from what they said, it was the hit of the Wine Bloggers Conference. We had local foods and local wines, and I can't imagine what would be better. And I would really love to see this grow into a program that we do more often. Lane County also awarded the participating Lane County Chambers the 2021 Tourism Ambassador Award. And I got to make a video explaining how much I love Cottage Grove, and I got to walk the stage to get my award. We hired a local favorite to write the full-page featured business articles for the local newspaper. That was John Stinnett. We wanted to tell the businesses stories and what they were doing to get through 2020 and 2021. Next. Concerts in the Park was amazing. It was so much fun. We had several new vendors. We found out late in the year that we were going to be able to do it, that the restrictions would be lifted enough for us to be able to meet in person again. So thanks to Cameron and his list of folks from the previous year, we were able to pull together a really nice season. We had great vendors, we had great bands, we had great community participation, and they really came out in support of our local nonprofits. The 50/50s is something that we do during the concert, and we have a different nonprofit that comes out every week, and they made a record amount of money this past year. So again, people were loving it. So I don't know if you guys recognize these guys. But that is Richard and Jake Boone. They're in their Halloween costumes, and there's Georgia and I. Georgia is my membership and office manager, and she is truly a godsend to me. She helps me keep on track and helps me with all of my crazy ideas. But that's she and I. We were there before people got there, so our masks were not on yet. I just wanted to make that clear because Richard brought that to my attention that we did not have our masks on. Anyway, so we had an estimated 3,500 trick-or-treaters. There was 60 participating businesses and groups and over 20 volunteers, and everyone had a wonderful time. I would like to thank the event committee, especially Shane May, ambassadors, and all the volunteers. We would not have been able to pull that off without you. And a special thank you to the city for funding the tents necessary to pull this off, and also the city staff that we depended on for pulling everything together. So in addition to everything else that we did, we put together a Shop Small campaign. And this was something that we tried to do throughout the year in order to bring more business to all of our local businesses, not just the businesses that were chamber members, because we realized how important it is for all of our businesses to survive at this time. You know, we were just really passionate about making sure that we supported everybody through this. So the first thing that we did back in February for Valentine's Day is we did a Sanity Chocolate virtual factory tour. And we partnered with Sanity Chocolates, and we put together something that's kind of like, what is the name of that movie? Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, yes. So the entrants brought receipts from local restaurants and chose a chocolate out of a bowl. And a percentage of them had gold foil hidden inside, and those who chose the ones with the gold foil were entered into a drawing. We had a drawing just before Valentine's Day, and our lucky winner was Jessica Clark, and she was able to take her children to Sanity Chocolates, and they made their own special chocolates, and they took them around and taught them how the chocolate was made. We did Cash Mob. Once a month, the Cottage Grove board and ambassador randomly chose a small business to visit and spend a minimum of $10 in each business. Jingle the Elf came back, and she visited our local businesses again. She does a great job in reminding people to shop small and safely during the holiday season. Our Harrison Parent Club Chamber Gift Certificate Program kept just under $9,000 in the community. They purchased $9,000 of chamber gift certificates. K&D, the Chronicle, and the Sentinel did a great job advertising with the help and sponsorship from the city of Cottage Grove. Next. The Christmas Kickoff. Now this to me was a dream come true. I think we all, living in a small town, have little pictures every once in a while of those Lifetime movie events where they have the wonderful events where the whole community comes out and everybody's happy, right? This was such a huge success. It was a true community event with partnership of several organizations. This was another great use of the tents that the city provided. Santa and Mrs. Claus met up with Jingle to light the Christmas tree. They sang carols with the middle school and high school choir and had a great time meeting everyone that stopped by to visit them. Emerald Fitness Club hosted letters to Santa, and the library had story time. Over 1,600 bowls of soup and hot chocolate were given out. 40 beautiful trees decorated by local businesses were given away. Downtown Cottage Grove purchased the trees, and the Boy Scouts provided and set them up. The city gave out nearly 400 cups of hot apple cider and 240 bags of cookies. Over 400 photos were taken of community members visiting with Mr. Claus and Mrs. Claus, Santa and Mrs. Claus. Thank you to the city staff and volunteers that made the entire evening a success for the community. This was far larger than we expected, but it ran so smooth. And we did not get one negative Facebook post. Not on this one or on Halloween. So that was a huge win. So next one. 2021 was a great year. For 2022, we were lucky enough to have several people interested in joining our board. We went through the election process, and this is the crew that will represent and keep me in line this year. I'm so excited. We have so much talent.
We leave on Friday for our board retreat. The fun bus, is that what it's called? The fun bus will transport us to Jacksonville. We will immerse ourselves in the town and spend time learning from their chamber. We'll do some team building and finalize our 2022 goals. For the grand finale, they're bringing the trolley out of winter storage to give us a tour. Next slide. So far this year, we're really looking at our policies and procedures. We are making updates to update those and the bylaws. We are making some changes to the concerts in the park. It will be managed by a chamber committee who understand the business of booking bands and sound equipment. It's really not one of my strong points. And so they will do a much better job than I will. This year, we're adding VIP tents. These are another use of the tents the city funded. They're for sale and reserved each week. And there will be a welcome basket with snacks and water. You can contact me for more information. We do have the awards banquet coming up, and that's happening on May 21st. We're in the planning phase, but it will be great. I have a lot going on, but I promised Richard I would keep my presentation short. Oh, and that picture is my daughter and my son when we first moved here from Ohio, and that's Cottage Grove Lake. And I had to put it in somewhere because I've been dying to use it. Last one. One more thing, I have copies of the Cottage Grove Visitors and Newcomers Guide. This is the new style for the chamber directory. And I also have copies of the new Eugene Cascades and Coast Visitors Guide. We made the cover, as you can see, with the covered bridge. And we have an amazing representation in the magazine. The city did a great job in sponsoring local businesses' advertisements. And I'll leave these on the table in the lobby for you to help yourself, or you can stop by the chamber and see me. Does anybody have questions?
Councilor Savage.
Thank you for all the work that you have done during this crazy pandemic time. It's really hard to keep an organization for businesses helping businesses going, and you've really thrived. It's just a joy watching you in this role. Thank you.
Councilor Soulsby.
Shauna, we're so grateful to have you in Cottage Grove and blessed that you moved here. And like to echo what Councilor Savage said, I mean, you stepped into this right as the pandemic was taking off, and how do you make businesses thrive when we're being shut down? And you just, those wheels were spinning, and we're just so thankful to have you. Good job.
Councilor Roberts.
Yeah, I echo that, Candace. You came into this, it was a mess, things that were going on, and you keep coming through. I want to thank you for that. I've enjoyed my conversations. I love coming by your office and talking with you. Your enthusiasm for the community is also, it's great. Lucky to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Fleck.
Please always let us know how we can help you. I was really worried about room tax dollars and the impact on the chamber. So, I mean, definitely lean on us to help support you.
Thank you. Thank you. I will.
Councilor Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Echo that as well. Just appreciate having the local businesses and not having to go far. To love to see things grow. Hopefully they do, starting now as well. Appreciate your efforts. One of the things you mentioned, being open more and having more communication with public in the new, semi-new location. I was waiting to hear, like, what are people coming here for in and of themselves? Like, you have some
9 out of 10, they come here to see the bridges. But it's only because they don't realize everything that we have. And that's something that I've been talking to Richard about, is maybe starting to work on Cottage Grove, covered bridges, and so much more. Because we have lakes, we have hiking. And as soon as I can get them into that visitor center, I'm like, you can do this and you can do this. And so, it gets them excited and want to come back to do more. Like, they may have just planned to be there for the afternoon to see the covered bridges. But I think with the visitor center there and us being able to talk to them and get out in front of them and show the maps and you know, we have wonderful brochures there. I'm really confident that we've done a really good job in bringing them back for other reasons than the bridges. But I will tell you, 9 out of 10 people coming into the visitor center are there for the covered bridge map.
Councilor Stennett?
Yeah, I'll just echo everyone's thanks for your efforts and your energy. I would hope I thank you just about every time we interact. If I don't do that, I should make it official. It's been great to partner on so many wonderful efforts. Those events were just perfect and uplifting and wonderful, and just a vision that was gonna be okay and gonna come through. And the confidence radiates from you. So I'm excited about the future of this community, and I can tell that you are too. And let's go. Let's do it.
I am. I'm very excited.
I want to thank you because you live the job. Anytime I got a question for you, I don't have to do it during business hours. You always answer me weekends, whatever. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Item C is Historic Preservation Commission appointments. Mr. Mongan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you'll allow me to turn it over to Councilor Savage, the chair of the subcommittee on interviews, to present the recommendation to council.
Thank you, Mr. Mongan. Today we held an interview, and we would like to recommend that we reappoint the incumbent, Tara Sue Hugart, and as well as the applicant, William Christensen, for the remaining term with an expiration of December 31st, 2024.
We have a second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Yes.
So we still have one seat unoccupied on that?
That's correct.
Are we planning to try to fill that within? Mr. Mongan?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Roberts, yes, we will repost the ad here in the coming weeks and get it back on the website and see if we can make some contacts with the existing commissioners to see if they know of any individuals that might be great candidates.
Thank you, Mr. Mongan, and thank you to the committee for following through on that.
All right, if there's no more discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the council review of the 2-year street pilot project. Mr. Sisson.
Thank you, councilors and mayor. In their meeting on February 9th, 2020, council directed engineering staff to create a 2-year pilot study in which the city issued 3 permits for the placement of streeteries within public parking spaces adjacent to existing restaurants. These were chosen on a first-come, first-served basis. The intent of the streetery pilot study was to support the downtown business community by creating a more attractive commercial corridor, attracting new businesses, fostering social engagement, and providing enhancements that contribute to livability and beauty of the historic district. The purpose of this memo or this presentation is to assist the council in evaluating whether to cancel or extend the streetery program. A little bit of background here. In 2020, the city received $30,000 in grant funds from the Oregon Tourism Commission, which helped the city construct and place streeteries at each location, greatly saving money and time for each business. Not including grant funds, the restaurant operators were responsible for all of the expenses associated with the maintenance and furnishings of each streetery. So the attached graphs in the presentation that you received, I'll just highlight the 71% of respondents, 23 of them affirmed that the streetery program should continue. 11 respondents felt the program should not continue. 4 responses expressed a desire to continue with changes. And let me just back up a little bit. In January through early March 2022, staff distributed questionnaires to downtown businesses and citizens. 36 questionnaires were collected and 2 emails were received in lieu of submitting a questionnaire. Some businesses were visited 2 or even 3 or more times. So yes, jumping ahead here, 71% of the respondents favored the program. And I hope that counselors were able to read through some of the written comments that were provided on the questionnaires. And I just want to pass a thanks to Assistant to the City Manager, Jake Boone, for assisting and collaborating on the questionnaire that we handed out. So recommendation is that staff recommends that council approve the streetery program to continue for the existing 3 streeteries. Are there any questions?
Councilor Fleck.
Well, more comment than question. I guess I just, I originally voted against this proposal, and my fear was that a car would stray into one of the streeteries and harm somebody. And I have to say, I just want to commend staff that they've mitigated 90% of my concerns. Not only with the grant did they build very sturdy streeteries, but they also put bollards in front of them, which really, if you go through Eugene, these are a whole lot safer looking than some of the ones that I previewed, when we were going to approve this. I am still concerned about parking. We did our parking survey. Even some of the people who were supportive and wanted to continue mentioned that there was some impact on parking. So I guess what I would like to see is it continue for another year. And then at that point, I think there should be the opportunity for other businesses if they wanted to apply to. I wouldn't want to just grandfather those 3, businesses in for years. So I think that I certainly can support it continuing. I would not want to see more than 1 on each block. So I think 3 is probably going to be our limit, given that that section between is it 9th and the highway or 8th in the highway. Obviously wouldn't allow one. So I would like to see it go forth. And I want to thank you guys for, really exceeding my expectations in this.
Councilor Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I would agree. I think we should go forward with it. I don't know if I missed it in here. Was the term already discussed, or is it indefinite as this memo states? This is kind of up to us. Okay. I just couldn't help but think, wow, that was 2 years ago. It could have been because it's in pandemic period and things went fast, but I could do, a year, 2 year, something like that. But I do like the idea of kind of a max of 1 per block or 3 total, but some sort of a lottery that it goes up so that everyone gets a shot at it that wants it.
Councilor Savage.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to echo what I said Friday morning in our agenda session, and I'm really thankful to all the work that you have done, Mr. Session, in regards to putting this together and all the hard work that you've done for the streeteries. They're beautiful. They're beautifully made, and I'm thrilled to have them downtown. I've been very specifically asked to bring up when are they going to be put in, so I don't know if that's something that you can comment on. When are they going to be put up?
Well, I'm going to defer that to Faye Stewart, that question, assuming that council approves it tonight. However, before that, let me give credit really quickly to the building and maintenance crew. They did a fantastic job building those streets.
Thank you. The other comment was there's a lot of talk of parking. There's issues with parking downtown. I personally don't feel like we have a parking problem downtown. I think that we have an enforcement problem downtown. So there are people that live and work and play downtown that park longer than 2 hours. And I think with accountability, there will be no parking issue. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
If I might respond to Councilor Savage's question. I believe that the dates were March 15th through January 31st for having the shooteries out. So I imagine if businesses are prepared and ready to support them and work them back into their operation, that we can work with them on getting them out, provided you accept the program.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
And just to report on the enforcement issue, one of the issues we've got right now is both of our CSOs have left. One became a dispatcher, the other one went to G. Yeah. And so we're currently working on getting some deputy volunteers to assist us there. A former city councilor, Garland Burback, has volunteered to be a parking enforcement, as well as Jake is going to do it as kind of an internship type program and gain some experience. So they'll be doing some training, and we'll get them out on the streets here shortly as well. So.
Thank you.
Councilor Soulsby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking forward to seeing Garland in one of those parking outfits. But I want to thank you for all your hard work with this, and I think it's gotten a really great response from the community, and I've really enjoyed walking downtown and seeing those full and people enjoying them, so thank you.
Councilor Flack.
So I guess at this point, given Councilor Irvin's comments of a couple years, I think I'll go ahead and move and see where it lands, that we extend the program for 2 more years with the existing businesses, but then open up lottery for others to apply should they wish to in subsequent years.
Second. Have a motion with a second. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, recommendation for award contract for manufacture and delivery of clarifier equipment. Mr. Sisson.
Oh, yeah. Councilors and mayor. All right. The City of Cottage Grove's wastewater plant has 2 existing clarifiers that are designed to separate solids from wastewater. The oldest, clarifier number 1, was constructed 39 years ago and has been inspected by West Yost Associates consultants that determined the existing clarifier is in need of overall rehabilitation and the mechanism is in need of replacement. Beginning on January 21st, 2022, the city invited clarifier mechanism manufacturers to submit competitive bids for the replacement clarifier mechanism by March 22nd. The afternoon, 2 p.m., we opened bids. And we adhered to a process that's spelled out in the city's procurement rules, as well as the ORS 279B public contracting requirements for the purchase of goods and services. On the chart on your memo, it lists 3 bidders. The base bid that's listed there, as well as the bid alternate. The base bid includes a stainless steel center column. And bid alternate number 1 is the proposed costs for a coated carbon steel column. Coated carbon steel is generally less expensive than stainless steel, and comparing the 2 numbers helped us determine the cost effectiveness of deciding between the 2 options. Let's see here. So while the coated carbon steel may save the city money in the short term, the stainless steel center column is expected to last longer. So what we received was Clearstream Environmental with a base bid of $433,000, $770. Their bid alternate was $421,000. The nearest bid on base bid was West Tech at $469,944. So staff determined that the apparent low bidder, Clearstream Environmental, is fully qualified to submit a bid and a bid to manufacture and deliver the new mechanisms to the wastewater plant. So a couple important points here. With regard to the question of whether to choose stainless steel columns or coated carbon steel columns, our engineer of record, Anthony Tartaglione, with West Coast, working on the clarifier project, confirmed that the city can expect to drain the new clarifier down every 10 years with, if we install coated carbon steel, drain it down every 10 years for the purposes of hiring a contractor to sandblast and recoat the carbon steel column at a rough cost of around $50,000 each time, for a total cost of $150,000. Say we do that 3 times over the next 40 years. That's a lot of money. And the stainless steel would not need this maintenance, and at a cost difference of just $12,400 over the carbon steel, the stainless steel is the more cost-effective choice. Further ensuring that the 2 redundant clarifiers are operating also maximizes overall reliability. Okay, so along with these bids, each manufacturer submitted an escalation clause in the bid, noting the volatility of steel prices that could cause their own prices for steel to significantly increase. The other two bidders that were high submitted 2 and 2.5% increases to their steel, or rather, their prices would increase by the actual cost of the steel at delivery to the fabricator. And Clearstream's clause is invoked when the Bureau of Labor Statistics Producer Price Index, PPI, for steel, stainless steel, changes by a minimum of 10% at the time of material purchasing for fabrication. So what this means is that, let's say Clearstream's bid price, 52% of that price that they bid is stainless steel at $225,000. Let's say the PPI index for stainless steel increases by 10% from February's number to March. And these are published on the federal website. Then a 10% increase of the 52% is a 5.2 increase to stainless steel at $11,729. So what we've determined is that the stainless steel is the most cost effective, and the escalation clause offered by Clearstream provides the least risk to the city due to price escalation compared to the others. So staff recommends that City Council award by motion the clarifier rehabilitation phase 1 mechanism contract to the qualified bidder, Clearstream Environmental, in the amount of $433,770, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract and all related documents. Councilor Fleck.
Well, first I want to commend the staff for the work and diligence trying to keep prices down and looking at what's going to serve our community over the longevity. And I had followed up with questions on Friday about, when we thought we'd be purchasing it and what the chances of hitting that would be. And I like I said, I just really want to commend staff for their due diligence on that. And with that, I'll move that the City Council award the clarifier rehabilitation phase 1 mechanism contract to the qualifier bidder, Clearstream Environmental, in the amount of $433,770, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract and confirm all associated documents subject to the expiration of the protest period or resolution of any timely filed protest.
I have a motion with a second. Is there any discussion? Councilor Irvin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just dawned on me, what is the material current?
Pardon?
What is the current material of the one that's in there right now? I understand we're basically retrofitting just the switches, the arm. What's the current material?
I believe it's coated steel. Just from memory of the color, it would look differently if it was stainless. But I would have to get back to you on that.
And we got how many years out of that without, I heard that we didn't stop that clarifier once.
39 years.
39 years, no maintenance. Well, what changed?
Councilor Irvin, I wouldn't say that no maintenance has been done. I think it was less than 10 years ago that clarifier was drawn down and some general maintenance work was done to the mechanism. The issue really is right now that the drive mechanism for that is wore out, but the drive mechanism, you can't replace it. You can't get parts for the motors and the various different parts in it. And so over time, I don't know. I can tell you exactly how much maintenance has been done over the years, but it is just a fabricated steel product. It's not stainless steel.
These thoughts are just coming to me right now, so bear with me. But I wonder what same carbon coated steel. So why would there be an estimate of every 10 years maintenance done at $50,000 a year? Is it not the same kind of material, or what?
Good question, Councilor. Our consultant, that's what they typically see out in standard practice for maintenance of coated steel. center columns that support the mechanism that spins around in that circular tank. I mean, are we anomalous in that the environment here is different, and so we don't have to do that same thing? I'm clearly missing something.
Councilor, I can't tell you whether or not it's been sandblasted and recoated every 10 years. I've been here 5 years and it hasn't been done since then, but I do know that it was taken down and extensive maintenance was done on it approximately 9 years ago. So at that time, it could have very well been sandblasted and recoated. I can't tell you for sure that that's what took place.
Yeah, I believe I heard that it has run virtually nonstop this morning. I thought I heard that.
But they do operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We do draw them down once a year to clean them. So we do cleaning. This specific clarifier hadn't been drawn down for 5 years because the reason this clarifier needs to be rebuilt is the floor of the clarifier, when the water is drained out of it, the floor floats upward. And so there was some concern over the past few years whether or not that clarifier could be drawn down and then restarted and reused without the floor actually crumbling. So we took it down this last year in preparation too, because we had issues with rags, plug pipes and that. We got it cleaned out and we were fortunate to refill it with water and it continued to operate. And that's what's been instigating the actual rebuild of this clarifier.
Mr. Boone.
If it helps to think of it as a life expectancy, for example, a male in the U.S., I believe right now has a life expectancy of about 78 years. But many people, you can say, well, my grandpa lived to be 90. Kind of the same idea with this sort of thing, as I understand it. They can correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea is we have to assume that this thing will last for 78 years for a person with less than that. Even though there are plenty that make it further than that, there are plenty that make it less than that. In the case of our existing one, it looks like we had a good long lifespan with it. But if you consider it analogous to kind of a statistical life expectancy, you're not going to be too far off. If that helps.
Okay, I mean, the decision-making process that we're having here seems to be on we're saving money in the long run by going on with something that requires less maintenance, that has higher upfront costs but lower life maintenance. So that draw the little equation out and say how does that work out? And I'm not meaning to call into question the expertise. I'm just looking at an equation going, is that really the case if our current system didn't require that? So, maybe we got lucky on it. Happy to go with the recommendation. I am curious why we haven't had them necessarily recoat, or maybe we just don't know that we did and we had that expense, but I just figured I'd bring it up. Councilor, I would say your concerns are important, noted. I'm impressed by the current plant manager's proactive operations and maintenance of the plant. The city has wiped the slate clean and really committed a lot of attention to that plant in recent years. In the last, my time here is about 4.5 years, and I am so impressed with what plant staff is committed to doing in the future.
Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, item F is council approval purchase of the 1.37 acres of land from Weyerhaeuser by quick claim deed. Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilor. So I'd like to start just a little bit earlier than the memo of 2021. So council might remember that we purchased a strip of land from Dina McCoy to help us with the outfall reconstruction for the Fillmore project, and also that piece of property, when we purchased it, was a strip of land that starts at Hayes Avenue and goes to the west over to the railroad tracks there near Highway 99. That piece of property, in the purchase with Mrs. McCoy, we made the commitment to build a walking trail along the river. What highlighted that is, I believe Mayor Gowing had noticed the trail and did some research and found that there was some Weyerhaeuser properties that stretch from essentially Lincoln Middle School all the way to 6th Street. He inquired and found that Weyerhaeuser didn't know that they owned them and that they would be interested in potentially selling them. So back in 2021, when that came to my attention, we brought this item to executive session. The council authorized making an offer for the property to Weyerhaeuser. We offered $5,000 with the intent of purchasing the property into developing a walking trail that would connect from 6th Street, essentially Bohemia Park, to Hayes Avenue. Through extensive work with our legal counsel and Weyerhaeuser's legal counsel, took several months, and the reason that it did is they went back with the title company and were trying to trace deed transfers from the time that the property was established, those parcels were established today. On 6 of the parcels, they were able to see that transfer directly to today to Weyerhaeuser. On 2 of the parcels, there was a deed gap in between the transfer from the Oregon Pacific Eastern Railroad to Bohemia Inc. So consequently, tonight it's being recommended that because there's a gap in the title transfers, title insurance, the title company is reluctant to issue insurance. So tonight what's being asked of the City Council is to authorize the purchase of 1.37 acres to Weyerhaeuser by quitclaim deed for that property. And I would share with you that it's my understanding that the only individuals that would be able to challenge this would be the owners of the OP&E Railroad and Bohemia Lumber Company at the time. And I'll share with you that those owners were my family, and they're not living, and I don't believe that there's much risk in seeing a claim from a proper individual that has the ability.
Councilor Fleck.
Mr. Mayor, move that the council accept the quitclaim purchase of 1.37 acres from Weyerhaeuser and authorize the city manager to sign all necessary documents.
Second.
I have a motion with a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item G is Budget Committee Recruitment. Ms. Likens.
Mayor and Council. The Budget Committee is composed of the governing body and an equal number of electors appointed by the governing body. All members have equal authority. To qualify to serve on the Budget Committee, the person must be appointed, must have the right to vote for the adoption of any measure. And what that means is that you need to reside within the city limits and be a registered voter. As of the end of December of 2021, there are 2 full-term vacant positions. The deadline for submitting the application is 5 p.m. Friday, April 8th. In order to facilitate the selection process, the council should select a council committee to interview the applicants and make a recommendation to the city council. And that's what staff's recommending.
Councilor Urban, Councilor Savage, and Councilor Flood.
And the chair.
Councilor Urban.
Thank you.
Concerns of council. Councilor Savage.
I just wanted to say it's wonderful to see so much participation in tonight's meeting. I am thrilled to see so many people online and so many folks from the community here to speak, and you are all beautiful. Thank you.
Councilor Urban.
I had similar sentiments. Thank you for everyone coming as we go around and around town and talk to people. That's probably been one of my consistent things. Like, come. It's so barren in here most of the time. So yeah, appreciate it. How else do we really get to hear and know and hear each other at the same time? So yeah, it's really helpful to when considering issues that affect us all. We really do. I'll speak for myself, but I feel like it's the same sentiment that we were really trying to make this a really good community for all of us now and future generations, and efforts along those lines working together are really important. And there's something very special about living, as you were talking about neighbors. You're my neighbors, I'm your neighbor. We're neighbors here, and that's a pretty unique thing in this world where we have to rely on each other in pretty unique ways. So it's good to be your neighbor. It's good to have you as my neighbor. Do we have, I just wanted to revisit the council rules. When do we have that scheduled? Was it a work session on that? Or?
I think second meeting in April, didn't we say?
I think so. Yeah. Okay, so coming up. Awesome. And then infrastructure tours again. I didn't catch. You were talking about that on the radio today, but are those scheduled or in the works?
They're in the works. Yeah, we want to get started back.
I guess some feedback on the process there. That was a real bear to try to get anybody to actually commit to, was it 3 Thursdays at a particular time? I don't know if anything can be adjusted there, but for those that can make it, highly recommend it. And I haven't had any council assignment meetings since the last time we met, so that's it.
Councilor Fleck.
So I think it's wonderful to have so many folks here too. In fact, I really want to encourage all of you to come April 5th over to the Armory, because these are tough decisions that we're making. We don't make them lightly. There's a lot of information that I don't know if you've had an opportunity to read or see. There is a YouTube posting, is my understanding, on our webpage from that meeting of our previous presentation, which really goes over the Ninth Circuit Court rulings, the legislative actions that have happened, and what our options are as a city. And I would really encourage everybody to become informed, because this is not a simple decision in any fashion. If folks were in a park, I would assume bucks would be there. If there are situations where we actually have managed sites, I don't think that we're going to have the impact that we would see, and what many of us, I think, I can only speak for myself, but I think we've all expressed concern about what's going on in some of our larger cities to the north of us, and not wanting to see that here. So I welcome everybody to come have a conversation with us around that. These are tough decisions. I do want to make a point. Earlier in the meeting, I was mentioning the clapping. That has been a council rule for as long as I've been on this council, which started in 2002. I really apologize to the young lady. I certainly did not intend for her to feel that that was directed at her. That was unfortunate timing, and I do apologize. I do care, much as it may seem that I don't. I wouldn't do this if I didn't. For those who don't know, we are not compensated up here. This is volunteer time for us, and this is about service to me. A gentleman in the back mentioned his faith. I am a faithful guy, and I do this as my way of giving back to my community. And I will tell you, after having sat up here for many, many years, you will never please everybody. And so what you have to do is you have to read the information, you have to listen to everybody's point of view, and then you have to let the chips fall where they're going to. And sometimes that means you're unpopular. I had a time where when I was on the fire board, where my high school son came home and said, "Dad, how would you feel if you were recalled?" Let me tell you how that makes you feel. You're giving service to your community, and your son in high school has listened to all his cohorts, badmouth his father because he was willing to take a stand and do what was right for the community. So I don't want anybody in the audience to think this is easy sitting up here. It's a lot of work, and it requires people who are dedicated to the betterment of our community. If there's somebody else that's going to be better at it. I welcome that. I love doing this and I'm happy to do it and I want to continue in the future. But if the citizens are ready for a change, I am totally good with that. I do want to make a clarification. There were comments made about community sharing and the showers and how we have volunteers coming out of our ears. I will tell you, COVID has been very hard on volunteers, I think, in any agency or jurisdiction. It has only been in the last couple of months that we've been getting more volunteers, and that is both at the pantry and in the shower trailer. In fact, Teresa and I were just talking this week about adding a second day, and I have offered to run it on Fridays by myself if necessary to do that. So I guess I just want folks to understand that there's a lot of misinformation that's being spread around. Clearly, folks did not ask me about the future of the shower trailer or where it was at. I run the agency, and so I tend to be keenly aware of what's going on there. And so I would welcome anybody who doesn't have the information to seek it out, whether that's through me or through others, whether it's around the community health clinic or whether it's around the homeless issues. I just ask folks be informed. Read all of the information on any side of an issue and make a determination that's best for our communities. I've heard the term neighbors here several times. I'm a neighbor. All of the things I do here, when I raise the water bill, I raise it on myself. But I also recognize that if I don't fix the infrastructure in our city, we won't have water. Like I said, this is not an easy job, and it is one I do with pride. It is not something that should be taken lightly, and I'm sorry to belabor that, but I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Councilor Soulsby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will echo Councilor Fleck on that this is not an easy job, and it's something that we don't take lightly. I do want to recognize that all people do deserve dignity and respect, and I believe that wholeheartedly, that it has to work both directions for all the citizens of Cottage Grove. And so we somehow need to find a solution for everyone, because when you get out and you talk to the neighbors that are surrounding areas that are, this is the last 6 months police reports for City Hall and the community center. So this has been a pretty big uptick for our police and our ambulances. And I went through all of these, and it's startling to me to see what I'm seeing. And I went through and highlighted everything. And I mean, there's been a lot of stuff going on, and I'm feeling like I haven't been told everything that I, as a counselor, I wish I would have known. And so I recognize that I am what they call a mandatory reporter now as a counselor. And something I just found out in a police report about is that there is let me just ask this question. Does the law allow a registered sex offender to live on city property, such as a community center or a library? Because the way I understand it is that they can't live within 1,000 feet of a school, and they can't live or loiter within 500 feet of a community safe zone. And our community center has the teen hangout, baby lap time, anime club, preschool story time. These are concerns for me. And when I read this police report, he states that he has lived there for 6 months since it all was opened. And so that bothers me that I didn't know that. And so I'm letting you know that I'm reporting that, because I think that's my responsibility to do that. I'm also concerned about, there's one report in here where it says a woman was starting fires at the community center, all around the community center, and that the person that made the phone call said that They had allowed her to stay in there, but now it was just finally too much. And also, the registered sex offender, he was trespassed, but it says for 15 days. In my opinion, I'm not an attorney, but I would think he should probably not live there and register the community center as his address. There's also reports in here about city staff having to call the police to have the music turned down when they're trying to work. I don't think that's a good work environment. I would not be opposed to doing a survey monkey that is anonymous to find out how city staff feel to be working and if they feel safe, because the stories that I've heard are not good. And I think it puts them in a bad situation. My personal opinion. I know there was a knife fight out here beside City Hall, and I don't want this to be taken wrong. I work right across the street and I watch and I see, and I've seen intoxication right out in front out here, and I know a man was arrested right in front. These are all legitimate concerns for our citizens, and they have to be addressed. The dignity and respect goes both ways. And we cannot expect our emergency services there's multiple ambulance runs here. There's, breaking up a fight. There's someone that's suicidal because she just told her partner in the homeless camp that she was going to leave. And so she said she was going to slit her throat. And there's just all this stuff that our emergency services are running on. And I don't know what the solution is, but I also don't think it's fair to all these neighbors that live around here. I know that there was one robbery in a neighborhood, and the possessions that were stolen were found in one of the homeless encampments that we are providing as a city. So what if the community center was burnt down? Who's liable? What if somebody was killed on our city property? Who's liable? So these are all things that we have to talk about as a community, and I didn't even know about a lot of them as a city councilor. I had to go and request the reports, and I don't know. I think we need to be a little bit more transparent with all of this, because this is what's coming. Eugene is clearing it out. I don't know if you guys know this, but they are asking all their homeless to leave because they have the games coming in. Where are they going to go? We need to think about this. These things are really important to all of us as a community, and it's not about disrespect or not being compassionate. This is not compassionate. When they're hurting each other, our community is going to get hurt, and it's only a matter of time. There's a teenager at the community center. I felt like I needed to raise these concerns. I'm really not trying to ruffle feathers, and I'm not being someone without compassion. Believe me, I am, and I care about this community, and I want to do the right thing, but we need to talk about all this.
Anyone else? Councilor Stennett.
I just wanted to commend and thank Mr. Christensen, who we interviewed and appointed to the Historic Preservation Commission. I believe you said you hadn't been involved with a commission of this kind, or I'd imagine there were nerves there that stepping into a new realm. It took guts, and I commend you for it. And I think if there were people thinking of doing that something similar, I would encourage them to get involved and serve their community too. So thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we will move on to business from the city manager, and item A, I'm going to take the comments of the online first, and Rob Dickinson.
Thank you, Mayor Gowing and council members. I'm Rob Dickinson, and I live on Gowdyville Road. I want to commend the city on doing a very thorough job in its presentation and planning for how to support the homeless in Cottage Grove. This is a complex and challenging issue with many dimensions, And there are no simple solutions or easy answers, but the city has done its homework and has provided much needed temporary shelter for the homeless in recent months at the community center, and has also done a good job planning for long-term solutions to develop adequate transitional shelter. I think it's important to get past the misconceptions about homelessness. It's not just the case, it's just not the case that most of the homeless are choosing to be homeless or that they are unhoused simply because of poor choices that people made. The Oregon Community Foundation did a detailed report on homelessness, and that report shows that housing unaffordability and the lack of affordable housing at all income levels are really key drivers for homelessness. Another cause of homelessness can involve people with extremely challenging personal circumstances, from medical or health issues, mental health issues, or substance use disorders, which is also a health condition. I answer calls on the Cottage Grove Mutual Aid Helpline, and many of the people calling and needing assistance have had significant health concerns or disabilities, or have had circumstances change dramatically with the death of a spouse or a partner, or whose housing became untenable because of domestic violence. I think it's really important to remember that approximately 11% of all the homeless are veterans, and they often suffer from PTSD and other forms of trauma. And that trauma can itself lead to greater risk of substance use, which often also tends to be a risk factor for homelessness. I think we ought to think about being supportive of those homeless veterans. And I strongly encourage the city to allocate the American Rescue Plan funds that are requested for the homeless shelters. The other topic I want to talk about is the Federally Qualified Health Center or Community Health Center, or FQHC. I think this is a great opportunity for Cottage Grove and South Lane County. The new FQHC will lead to better health outcomes for our community and also contribute needed job training. I've heard the concerns that are raised that it's being located near high school. This concern, I think, stems from unwarranted stigmatization of those suffering from mental illness and a misconception that those with mental health challenges are dangerous, which is not true. In fact, locating the FQHC near the high school provides better opportunities for students to access much needed mental health services. Students with working parents who have hourly jobs would have a hard time getting their kids to appointments at other locations, and having the FQHC nearby makes it easier for students to access services. Suicide is a leading cause of death among school-age youth, and we know that access to mental health services is a means of preventing or reducing youth suicide rates. So I would much prefer that we focus on the real risk to our students, in this case, their leading cause of death, which is suicide, over a false narrative of risk that is based more on a myth than fact. Having a community health center near the school locates services convenience to the need. I strongly encourage the city to allocate the requested funds for the FQHC. Thanks for letting me join you tonight and share my thoughts.
Thank you. Alicia Beamer.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Gowing and City Council. I'm Alicia Beamer, the Chief Administrative Officer for Cottage Grove Community Medical Center with Peace Health. While we understand the dialogue for specific community health center programs and services is ongoing, I did want to share that Peace Health strongly supports the overarching vision of adding a Lane County Community Health Center in Cottage Grove. The facility will expand local access to primary care and mental health services to the thousands of people who currently leave South Lane County and North Douglas County to visit federally qualified health care centers in Eugene and Springfield. Peace Health also supports the Career Technical Education Program and would have interest in hiring graduates that qualify for positions at Peace Health. Peace Health's mission is built on collaboration and the just distribution of health care for the community. We support those who are working to bring this much needed resource to Cottage Grove. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce Kelsch.
My address is 78340 Haldeman Road. I also support the allocation funds for the homeless projects that the city is proposing. I appreciate Councilor Soulsby's openness and concerns, and I think as part of the mix, the town hall will serve as a forum for different points of view from all sorts of perspectives. And I think that's the challenge. I mean, there are so many different pieces of this very complex problem. But I do appreciate the thoroughness that the city has gone through in creating some solutions. Nothing's going to be perfect. But I think I've sat through Richard's presentations 3 times now. And I'm hoping every time I watch it, it gets a little bit better. The town hall presentation will be another opportunity for the community to really understand some of the issues and some of the legal responsibilities the city has in addressing this issue. It is complicated. It does take a lot of thought and a lot of community input to come up with solutions. And I appreciate all the work that's gone into it. In terms of the federal health clinic, I think it's a wonderful project. It provides many opportunities for our community for improving public health. I think that I've known people personally that worked in this project for almost 10 years. The good folks have put their shoulder to the wheel and put in lots of hours to create this opportunity for our community. And I appreciate the city's support of that. Councilor Urban, you raised a question about how much money should we put in from the city's point of view. I think the city's participation in the funding of this project is absolutely critical as the group continues to look for additional funding. Community support is key for other funders as they look at the commitment of a community for projects like this. And so I support both those projects in terms of the funding and your councilor support. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Gilroy.
Jim Gilroy, 946 Blue Sky Drive. I'm really here to answer questions, if you have any, as a basis of a presentation 2 weeks ago, which we gave you. I'm not going to reinvent that. I know you've done your homework. Some of you agree fully, some may not so much, have questions. I do want to commit to you that the people that are going to have the responsibility of running this health center, which already has 6 in Lane County, and they're all metro area health centers, not one in the rural area. And this is the first chance that the county commission got behind and said, we're going to do one in Cottage Grove. And I think this is an opportunity. The only other thing I will say is looking at the investment, I know $100,000 is a lot of money for a lot of people. And when you break it out by the number of citizens in Cottage Grove, it's $10 per person. I ask you to consider that in light of the importance of improving health. And remember, you appointed me as a vision keeper. You also appointed other people in this room here as vision keepers. And we're tasked with the job of making sure that we follow the goals that you've set out for the vision of Cottage Grove. And the top goal is community health. So put your money where your mouth is. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so American Rescue Plan Act funds, Mr. Myers.
So the city of Cottage Grove has received under the American Rescue Act funds from the program, and our first distribution, our first allocation was $1,161,000. We've received that, and we'll be receiving a second allocation probably in a couple months. We need to start kind of lining out the first reports due at the end of April. And we don't have to have it spent by April, but some of it has been spent on some of the COVID relief issues that have gone on in the community, and as well as some of the publicity and work with the chamber and businesses. What we prepared for you after having a work session on the American Rescue Funds and looking at city goals, we've prepared a distribution of that allocation. The rules have just changed from the U.S. Treasury. The interim rules had a number of categories that you could spend the allocations on, and most of those were pretty specific. Broadband was one where you had to demonstrate that the average speed that people would use in the community was lower than 25 megabits, which is ridiculously slow. And most of ours are higher than that, but we don't have the capability or the facilities that we'd like to have in the community that other larger places have, but you wouldn't be able to do that under the old rules. You also, under the old rules, couldn't do street maintenance. You couldn't do any kind of street reconstruction. unless you had lost revenue. And it had a provision to allocate or calculate lost revenue using a formula that the U.S. Treasury had prepared. That formula would require you to take the lost revenue and put it into the entire fund, and then look at the entire fund compared to previous years before the pandemic, which then watered down what your lost revenue would be. They changed those rules, and those just came out in January, where they created a standard allowance for communities of their total amount or no more than $10 million. Since we didn't get to 10 million, we can take our total amount and it goes into a standard lost revenue allowance, which means we can then use it for any general government activity or operation. And so based on that change, which goes into effect on Friday, we have put together this plan and modified it from the earlier discussions, and also bringing in some of our discussions from our work session on streets and transportation. We have put together this plan where we're allocating those funds and creating a roadmap of how this would be spent over the next 2.5, 3 years. It all has to be spent by December of 24, December 31st of 24. We can allocate it and have to have it shown that it's allocated and we spend it by the 26th. But the general thing is to get it spent before the end of 2024. So you have your list here of the different categories. These are broad general categories that we fit into the budget. Some of it will be in the existing budget. Some will be in next year's budget that we're currently drafting, and then some will be in the future budget as well. So the numbers are here for you to discuss. We have included the $100,000 funding that was asked for in the Federal Qualified Health Clinic. Broadband, we put $200,000 there. Wastewater treatment and development of designs for a biosolid treatment system, so we can quit shipping our biosolids to Sutherland and actually drive in here and have a product available to be used on parks, on lawns, on people's gardens and flower beds as well. And then a development, another $100,000 to help with the installation of the water reuse pipe, $400,000 to go into street maintenance, to assist with providing some opportunities to maybe do a couple of the projects that we talked about in the street maintenance work session. Water reservoir assistance in construction. We're getting ready to start some design work and do one of the other water reservoirs, so try to help with that a little bit. Low-income housing and development of property with low-income housing. We have 350 in there. Part of that's been spent in the purchase of the property, if that's where we want to go with it, on Douglas Street, and then assisting with maybe some future low-income, very low-income housing development in the community. The health clinic, community tourism promotion, business economic development, $160,000. Homeless sheltering and the program there for that, and paying for some operations of that to be managed and operated properly, $575,000. $42,000 for RAIN program and funding there. $70,000 to replace the saddle span cover. The saddle span has reached the end of its life. It's gone longer than its life expectancy due to the maintenance and the care that we've taken care of it, putting way out of light and in the off seasons and everything. But it's time to start replacing that, or looking for a replacement. You can see pinholes through it, and that's $70,000. Last time when we purchased the saddle span, it was purchased with a series of donations from a number of community organizations. Now's kind of not the time to go out and ask for community organizations to really help with that. We're trying to get them back on their feet, so this would be a way to get that moving and help move that forward. We've had about $60,000 in COVID expense, and then the development of a mobile crisis response team. We've been working with Southline Mental Health and the police department, and kind of visiting with Florence as well to see what kind of program they have, to try to get that started from $25,000 to get that moving forward and to start getting some program there going. So that's how we've got that spread out. As a result of looking at the goals and the ideas from the council, it's a pretty broad plan, impacting a wide range of members of the community and organizations as well.
Councilor Stannett.
I just wanted to start off. I don't know if this is necessary. The line item on community tourism promotion, I might want to would I declare a potential as the program administrator of downtown Cottage Grove? If need be, I suppose I would recuse from that discussion of that line item.
Right.
Is that okay?
Yeah, so this would just be a potential that, yeah, that you don't have to do.
Great.
Councilor Irvin? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That affects the chamber budget?
It does.
Okay. I think I might actually have a potential conflict on that one. My wife is helping with the planning of the, yeah? You good? All right.
Yeah, that'd be a potential too. She's not getting paid. Or is she?
Better be.
Oh, she's getting paid. Well, I don't think we're helping with the awards bank. This is other programs where we help with the ads and done some promotion out.
Okay. I guess I declared.
And I guess to join the choir, I don't foresee our community sharing being involved in any of this, but I will declare a potential anyway.
I'm jumping on the bandwagon, and I would like to declare a potential conflict involving community tourism as well.
Councilor Irvin. So beyond that, an analogy came to mind that, like I think we should have a good discussion about this. This is pretty huge. It's more money than I've ever, got to decide on in one spot. And it does remind me of when I wrecked my truck one time, totaled it, and got way more than I ever put into it in that totaling. And I had this life decision point where it was like, what do I do with all that money? Do I be really responsible with it? Or do I dream up ideas that could, be great and could have cool effects and benefit people, be generous, take people out to dinner, all sorts of stuff. And I wrestled with that for a long time. And eventually I just bought a really slow motorcycle and rode it extremely cheap and saved up and spent it on what was needed. Still landed a wife on a not cool motorcycle. And that comes up to mind right now because as thinking about all this, I can't get off of what is our responsibility as a city. How many of these things were not budgeted? I thought the rain did that make it in the budget?
It's not in the budget, but it's an expenditure that we've made.
Or it might have we definitely approved it already. So I guess that I want to say that I'm coming from that position when I see broadband for me falls in that category, wastewater improvements. I know we talked about that. How can we actually leverage and cut costs? The maintenance of the water system, road safety of personal property and person. My thumbs up on that, and I'm not sure, how to turn those knobs and dials. And streets. The other ones, it's not to degrade how great they might be and what effect they might have. I am not convinced that that is our primary role. And the other analogy that comes to mind is that, not analogy, but just position, is we have to be excellent at what we do, what our core responsibilities are. We should be excellent at that. The gentleman right there was ringing the same harmonic fork for me on that we're going to do the best that we can with what we have at what we do. And I understand the need for these other things, but I don't think, I'm not comfortable with proportions for one, but dumping in to things when we're not absolutely being excellent at what we do. And the biggest thing to me, than what I've heard, that we're subpar at is the streets. And we know that the whole discussion when we had our work session on streets was all when we didn't think any of this money could be used for streets. We had all the discussions around that, what categories they had to go into. I mean, that discussion would have been, I think, a lot different. We would have had direction coming out of it had we known this. So that's where I just want to start off. But I want to know, I'd like to know where you guys are in decision making about where our priorities
because I think that will adjust with this new college law.
Councilor Soulsby.
That's exactly where I am, is I feel like the rules have changed, and I'm looking at this and thinking, what is our mission statement? And need to really get that in check and make sure that we are doing what's right for the city and what our responsibility is as a council.
Councilor Fleck.
Well, I could approve this as it sits, and I certainly also could adjust numbers back and forth. The situation, and maybe this is better to put this off until after our April 5th meeting so that we have some idea where we're going in the homeless discussion before we talk about where we want to allocate and how much we want to allocate in that realm. Because I do agree with you that we need to allocate monies appropriately, but to borrow money as interest rates are going up, obviously also is a challenge for the city. So if we decide that we do want a managed site, which I fully think we need to do, but certainly am open to negotiation and tweaking, I think having a managed location where we have somebody on site is going to mitigate most of the concerns that I heard Councilor Solby wrestle. And I'm not going to say all. I mean, absolutely, I ran the shelter all winter, and we did have a couple problems for sure. So I won't say it will mitigate all of it, but it will mitigate most of it. And in fact, the problem is our residents that are unhoused are as different as you and I are. And every situation is going to be different, and the circumstance around each one of those folks is going to need a different level of care. And so I guess I would want to come out, talk with the community. Like I said, I believe we need to put money in these areas, but I think that we're putting the cart before the horse, and I'd love to see this come back after the April 5th meeting, although we're getting kind of in a tight window because we've got the community center that needs by May 1st to have folks out so that we can get the building materials in for doing the roof. So we are kind of pushing into kind of a tight timeline. And I guess what I would recommend is that if folks have different proposed amounts, maybe they should get those together and bring them forward. And then we can work towards coming up with something that we can agree with. Because I think we could bat this around all night long, and not be able, there's just so many variables here. I think it'd be very tough for us to do in this setting. And I'm totally open. Like I said, I don't think this is, anything that we have to go with. I think it's a good framework for discussion. Absolutely.
Well, Nessa, I was wondering on this, is these figures, like 200,000 for broadband, is that going to get it where we want it to be, or is that just to get it started?
It's to get it started, unless if we get the EDA grant for Main Street, this would be money that could be used to help assist with that, because we do have some broadband work in that Main Street program as well. So,
and the same with the biosolids, with 100,000, do the biosolids or just get started?
That gets it started as well. That gets the engineering work done and the design work, and then we would have to actually do the construction.
Yeah, so it's not really finishing anything, it's just getting started on a lot of things. And to me, I would rather get things done than just get started. But I'm 1 of 7. Councilor Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a very similar numbers question, which is, it's a lot of zeros here. Is there a rhyme or reason as to why, for instance, the saddle span is because that is to replace the saddle span. That makes sense. The rain funding is because that's what we've projected that we would give to rain. The COVID response is because that's what you've already spent. So it's kind of reimbursing yourself. But the other numbers don't make sense to me. Are there projects associated with these numbers, which is why these numbers were chosen, or are these just lumps of money being thrown to get things started?
monies that are there for expenditures that have been made. If we're doing any kind of the homeless sheltering, we have to pay for the piece of property because we have to pay the street fund back for that. So the 575 there, we're going to spend 211 of it into the street fund to pay back the street fund for purchasing that property to put our street in. There's another 211,000 going into the street fund as a result of that. So those are what we figured in some of those base numbers, and then looking at the estimates and their estimates for a lot of these, because some of them we haven't done. And this is where we're saying, hey, we're estimating, we've gotten information from the third party contractor, how much is it going to cost to run a facility, and trying to put those pieces together. Now, will that do all of it? Probably not. We're going to have to be asking the state, we're going to have to be asking the county for some assistance on those and applying for grant funding from those and using this as a match to get started and get things fit.
The other comment that I would have is, as I was listening to Councillor Soulsby talk about the different issues, the one thing that kept coming to mind is, gosh, I wish we had a mobile response, because a mobile response could really be the one to call and free up our police officers and folks who do that first responding, and yet that's the lowest funded line item here.
Yeah,
so I would like to see that funded more to help.
We don't know what that would be yet, and in talking with Florence, this is kind of the number that we were looking at. There is some funding there from the county as well, and trying to get grant funding to help with that. So this would get that funding started and get that match in there. We're trying to capitalize and try to get as much money from other sources to match in and build on these amounts.
Thank you, Mr. Myers.
Councilor Stinnett.
I can agree with bits and pieces of everything we've heard. First and foremost being that this is a lot of money. And it isn't, but it sort of feels like, there's that feeling that it's found money in the sense that it's coming from the federal government. I think staff and Richard has done a good job of kind of putting what was a broad ranging conversation on regard to the potential of these funds out there. And again, you get a pot of money, what do you want to do? We have our responsibilities. We want to be excellent, as you said, at executing our responsibilities to this community as a council. I guess I wonder, all of these projects have merit to me that I can see. I wouldn't oppose one to fund another and vice versa, but those are kind of the choices we have to make. I guess I wonder about the timing of this. It seemed to me that, can we roll this directly into our official budget process? Can we use the budget committee that's put there to budget funds for the city of Cottage Grove to consider these items as part of that process? Can we, we could have a town hall in every single one of these. We could get opinion ad nauseum and about people's passions, their priorities. I think that's why we gathered together to put a budget together. Can we do that?
And that's the purpose of this, to give us that general guideline so we know where to start sticking the money in for the budget committee to look at. We're not going to come in with, here's this money, what do we do with it, and not have it. We've got to put it in the expenditure, and that's what we're trying to do, is break it out. Now, the budget committee, they can move them around, and it will be different budgets throughout the year as well as when we start looking at some of these other projects in future years.
So are you saying that we're not locking anything in?
We're not locking anything in here. These are broad general categories that we're going to try to put into the budget documents. Some of them we will be locking in because we've spent them this year. And under the American Rescue Plan, we can spend clear back to March of 21. So any expenditure we made from March of 21 till now can be funded through these. And so that's where we've got the COVID relief, and we've actually purchased those pieces of property. Do we want to put those into here? So that's where we want to put some of those, and we need to do that in the current budget for those expenditures. But the rest of it will be in the future budget. So the only piece that would be locked in is what we're going to do. Come back to you with resolutions saying, here's where we want to allocate the actual expenditures for the current budget.
Can we unpack a recommendation here that the city council review the ARPA funding plan and by motion express support for the funding plan. Authorize the selection of the standard allowance to replace loss of public sector money.
So
I just want to make sure I understand.
yeah, the resolution's two pieces. One is you need to authorize us in the report to say we're checking the box for the standard allowance, which I think that's a no-brainer. We don't want to go through the reporting process and say, yeah, we're using it in these categories and have to go through all that reporting and accounting and everything for those specific things. We want to take the whole amount and put it into the standard allowance. It makes it easier for us, and then we're able to use it on anything that we want to. The plan is a plan, and then we'll be coming back with the more specific stuff as we move along, and that can change. And something can break, something will happen, and we may need to change things. Move those around, but it's kind of laying it out so we can have some kind of idea. We're not spending it all up front on something. We've got it held so we can do something in the next year or third year or whatever it's called.
Councilor Irvin?
I want to make sure we, yeah, I hadn't fiddled with the numbers too much, but rough. Love to see over half go to city services. Just right off the bat, I am interested to hear a little bit more. Just piqued my interest, Mr. Myers, on the refunding that 211,000 of the 575 would be a refunding. And I'm trying to remember through the budget process. If it gets refunded, it can then be respent.
It won't be refunded. We will be buying the property from the street fund. The street fund bought the Highway 99 site to put our street in. And we whittled that off. That's been taken care of. And the intent was to sell the Highway 99 site. We now have the opportunity to use that in some way. And if we need to take it out of the street fund, we pay the street fund back for that.
To be clear, the street fund doesn't own the property. Right?
Street fund owns the property. The city owns the property, but it's actually purchased the street fund money. So if we're not using it for a street, we have to repay it.
So what was the intent that we use it for a street that
we took our street off?
We're not talking about behind the city shop.
No, this is the one.
Okay.
K&D.
So this would all fall under if it gets converted into a housing center. Okay. I guess I'm inclined to hear from the town hall. That sounds like, I don't know if that's too late. If it's not too late, I'm inclined to do that. If that causes a problem, then I'd be open to suggesting that.
Councilor Fleck.
So I'm wondering if we should break apart our homeless discussion or action, I should say, where we do the pieces we need to and then work on the ones later, which would resolve our community center issues.
Yeah, and the other thing that really needs to be done tonight is the decision whether we're going to use the standard allowance.
Oh.
Because if we can report that we're going to use the standard allowance and then say we're still working on the budget, we can put that in the report.
So I'll move that the city uses the standard allowance.
Second.
Have a motion with a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
But I do want to stress, you do need to be looking at these numbers and seriously be considering how we're going to use this. I mean, this is a tough decision. We can't just say, oh, now we've done, the next time we bring it up, we need to really be thinking about how we're going to divide this up.
And
that's going to be important for us.
And just to point to Councilor Irvin, if my Cottage Grove math does me right, if you add the $60,000 for repay of COVID, it's $1 million of it is going back to city services. So it's almost half.
Okay, more to street fund would be my point.
Okay, report from the city manager.
Just for your information, the county's emergency declaration proclamation resolution that they declared the COVID emergency expires at the end of March. Our emergency declaration is tied to that, and so ours will also expire on the 31st of March as well. So we'll be out of 30th, whatever the end of the month is. And so we'll be expired as well. Reminder for the SEIs, hopefully since Friday when I mentioned it, some of you have done it. No, then you need to do your SEIs and get those done, turned in. It's quick, easy, takes just a few minutes, especially if nothing's changed. You can go online and take care of the statement of economic interest for the state. Other than that, I do want to clarify on the shower trailer, because what I heard was that the wheel dryers paid for a grant to buy the shower trailer. That's not the case. The city purchased the shower trailer using CARES Act funds and purchased that, and then community sharing is operating it for the city. The wheel dryers gave $1,000 to help with unhoused needs in the community, including those needs that are at the shower facility, buying soaps and towels and things like that, or other needs that pop up with the facilities and services. So I just want to make sure that's clarified. So, and we do appreciate what they did and the efforts they've supported and everything with that. Wheelbarrows have been really good at trying to get more support and volunteers going. So, other than that, nothing else.
Okay, and there's no attorney report, no items removed. We're adjourned.